So we've just been arriving for a few minutes as people have logged on to the system. Just sitting quietly, doing nothing, with no other instructions or invitations or encouragements, just to arrive. So firstly, I'd like just to welcome you all to this Buddhist Society basic meditation class on Thursday evening. So if you're logging in from somewhere else in the world, a very warm welcome to you. It's Thursday evening here in London. And if you're new to the Buddhist Society, an especially warm welcome to you. This evening, in the next hour and a half, we aim to do some basic meditation practice, and there'll be several periods of guided meditation and some silent meditation. And if you're really new to meditation practice, I hope there'll be enough in this evening talking just to introduce you to some of the basic principles that we're operating on. So what happened for you in those few minutes when I encouraged you to arrive? What happened for you? Where did your mind go? This process of settling down, just arriving where we are in the present moment, in the room that we're in, it's quite an easy instruction to receive, and it's an easy instruction to give. But actually, in reality, it's quite difficult. Our minds flit from this to that. We have what is generally known as monkey minds, busy minds, and sometimes they're very, very monkey minds. So what helps? What helps us to settle? What helps us to really become present to the place we're in and to the moment that we're in? So one of the basic practices that we offer in this class, and indeed in most meditation traditions, would be to go through the body, just to learn to pay attention to different parts of the body scan. I know some of you have done this so many times and are quite resistant to it, and I understand that. But let's just start with a little bit of just scanning the body. So if you can find a comfortable sitting position, reasonably upright, and if you're sitting on a chair, just plant your feet firmly on the floor, so the soles of your feet are resting on the floor, so your legs are not crossed or splayed out to one side or the other, but just nicely in front of you, the soles of your feet providing a stable base for you. If you're sitting on the floor, cross-legged on the floor, that's fine too, on a cushion. Just ensure that you're comfortable and you have a position you can maintain with ease for around 20 minutes to half an hour. You may want to elevate your hips so that they are above your knees and your ankles. So if you have a cushion underneath you, that helps. And then for all of you, whether you're on a chair or on the cushion on the floor, the first thing I would encourage you to do, I would invite you to do, is just to place your attention on those points of contact with the floor. So you might want to close your eyes for this so that you can go inwards, and just allow your attention to rest on the points of contact with the floor. Now, the invitation is quite specific. It's to feel them, to feel those points of contact, to feel the soles of your feet. If you're sitting on a chair, if you're sitting on the floor, to feel your ankles and your shins, and perhaps your knees, whatever the points of contact you have. So if you find yourself thinking about those points or imagining them, that's okay, but just notice that and see if you can find a way of moving into feeling, sensing them. What's the pressure like? What's the actual contact with the carpet or the floor through your stockings or your socks or whatever it is you're wearing. What does that feel like? And see if you can find a way of feeling grounded as you sit. So by that, I mean feeling supported by the surface you're sitting on, contacted with the floor, in contact with the floor, and just supported, resting on it. So allow your energy and your attention to sink down. Now bring your attention to your sitting bones on the chair or the cushion. And again, in the same way, I invite you just to feel the contact, feel the pressure, the way that those points are supporting the weight of your torso. Just notice how you're feeling. And again, if you find yourself thinking about them, imagining them, having a visualization of them, just notice that. That's fine, but just notice that. Just see if you can shift your attention into feeling. And now bring your attention to your back, the spine. And just check that it's nice and upright. Not rigidly straight, but just reasonably upright. It's fine to use the back of a chair as a light support, but I would encourage you, if you can, not to put too much weight into the chair. See if you can support your back and your torso with your own body weight, with your own body, rather than using the chair. So basically, the invitation there is not to slouch into the back of the chair. And this helps us keep alert and awake. But the invitation is just to feel your back. And whilst you're feeling your back, I want to offer you another invitation, which is just to relax. So you have an upright posture, grounded, stable, and the invitation, the encouragement, if you like, is to relax. So no one's going to ask you to do anything difficult or extraordinary in this session. Whatever else you've been doing during the day, you can put aside for these few minutes, for this period of the day. Then I invite you to feel your neck and your head and your shoulder area. Just take it all in. And perhaps bring your attention to the crown of your head. And just lengthen a fraction or two towards the sky, towards the ceiling. Just pulling yourself upright in a nice upright column so that your head and your neck and your back and the spine is all aligned with your pelvis. And that's all sitting on top of your sitting bones and your stable feet. So everything's in a nice upright column. And see if you can relax into that. So the basic posture is upright and relaxed. Now, if you're really new to meditation, you might be wondering what to do with your hands. It's always a good question. Just find a neutral position for them, resting on your thighs or in your lap. They can be upturned or downturned. Just find something that feels comfortable for you, where you don't have to think about what to do with them. So it's just a neutral resting position. And then take a moment or two just to feel the whole of your physical body, from the crown of your head to the soles of your feet, taking in the points of contact with the floor and with the chair or the cushion. Feel the clothes on your skin surface and the air in your hands and your face. So just get a sense of the boundaries of your physical body. And again, just notice if you're visualizing that, imagining it, or thinking about it. And see if you can just gently shift your attention to feeling, sensing. And now I invite you to bring your attention into your mouth and just notice what you're tasting right now. And it may be nothing. So notice the saliva, your teeth, the roof of your mouth. So just notice what's going on there. What's the taste of nothing? And now I invite you to smell whatever you're smelling right now. It may be your supper cooking somewhere in your the place you're living. It may be some flowers in the room you're in. It may be nothing. What are you actually smelling? And now I invite you to notice what you're seeing with your closed eyes. What, what are your eyelids? What's the light doing coming through your eyelids? What do you notice when you bring your attention to your eyes? Even with closed eyes, we can still have a sense of sight. Now I invite you to bring your attention to your ears. What are the sounds that are coming to you? What are you receiving through your ears? I'm going to stop talking for a few minutes and just allow you just to notice what's going on. And if you can, see if you can find a way of receiving sounds without getting entangled with them. Just noticing them. Let them come, let them go. And now I invite you just to come back to your sense of touch. So again, just feel your sitting bones on the chair, your feet on the floor, or the points of contact with the floor. And just feel your upright back. Just get a sense of your body. So please feel free to stretch and move, adjust your posture, take a sip of water. And if you're not already relaxed, relax some more. So what we did there was a body scan. Most meditative traditions will include some element of working with the body. And that was an alternative version. We worked with the sense of touch. We included the sense of taste, sense of smell, sense of sight, and the sense of sound. All these senses are aspects of the body. And when we do a body scan, every teacher will do a different version. Probably every session they'll do it differently. So there are many ways of doing it. And if you do this in your own practice, find something that works for you. There are some important principles being offered in doing a body scan. And I know some long-term meditators that have been at it for quite a while actually have problems with the body scan. And there's some important principles at play here, and I think it's worth mentioning them. Just to say a couple of things, though. In meditation practice, one of the offerings that I make is to encourage people and to invite them. There are no shoulds in this tradition. There are no shoulds in practice. And everything I say is an offering, an invitation, an encouragement. And I really do want to emphasize that if you find something doesn't work for you, that's fine. Just leave it if it's not for you. Give it a good go. That would be an encouragement. Be patient with it and with yourself. But if it really doesn't work for you, leave it and just find what does work for you. So the principles that are at work that I want to sort of really emphasize tonight is when you're working with your body in something like a body scan or in any other part of meditation, you can only work with what's arising in you. And it's a useful point of entry into meditation is to see if you can find a way of being very non-judgmental about how you witness your own experience. So this sense of not judging things is really important here. Now, if you're working with your body, it's pretty obvious, really, and that's why we do it. Everyone's experience is different. Everyone's body is different. You can only sense your own body. You can only work through it in this way, in your own way. So what you find is going to be different to anyone else's. And there's no place here for judgment or comparison. So if you find that you're feeling really tense, that's just what you have at that moment in time. That's what you work with. It's neither good nor bad. It's just the way it is. So there's an important point of principle here at work, which is just being non-judgmental in your practice. What do we mean by that? Well, there are a number of things that one can say, but it has to do with being open-minded. So whatever arises in your experience arises, and that's okay. Being impartial, being unbiased. What's the legal phrase? Treating things without fear or favor. So if we have aching joints, that's the way it is. We don't react to it. We don't fight it, get into a fight with it. We just notice that. It's not ideal, but that's the way it is. That's what we work with. It has to do with being uncritical. It has to do with being accepting. So the way we find our bodies when we do the body scan is the way it is, and that's okay. We notice what triggers us about our bodies when we work like this. We notice we may have expectations that are not being fulfilled. We may wish to sit without knees that ache, but they may ache, and we may just notice that. And it may trigger us. We may get into a little bit of a fight with it. But if we can keep in mind this sense of just being not judging our experience, just noticing it, it has to do with being charitable to ourselves, cutting ourselves a bit of slack, if you like, forgiving. It has to do with being understanding. This is how we are. And above all, one of the sort of the attitudes, the values that underpins all of this is a certain sort of benevolence towards ourselves, a certain sort of kindness. Some of us are terribly critical of ourselves. We've all been brought up in quite a competitive, goal-oriented culture. And in meditation practice, we're being asked to unravel that and to move or lean into a different direction. That has something to do with being kind to ourselves. A non-judgmental attitude is essentially a kind attitude. Certainly with listening, I mean, if any of you've done any work in listening to other people, or training to listen to other people, one of the things they always emphasize is being non-judgmental, to really truly listen to someone else. It really helps not to have an attitude of judging, but to be really non-judgmental, unbiased, accepting, understanding, to have an attitude of benevolence. So too with ourselves. And this is what we're doing in meditation, is that we're learning how to actually work with ourselves, witness our own experience. And if we can move into that non-judgmental frame of reference, This really assists us on the path. Of course, many of you who are familiar with meditation practice will be familiar with working with the breath. And the breath really helps us to move meditation practice on a bit. So we'll do a bit of that now. We'll sit again in our upright posture and relaxed upright posture. So it's awake, alert, and relaxed. So the upright spine helps us keep alert and awake, and we just relax around that. So just get a sense of being upright, comfortable, and relaxed. And again, just notice the points of contact with the floor. Just get a sense of your back again. And just settle again. And then just notice in this still, quiet body, just notice the movement caused by the breath. So without altering the breath in any way, just see if you can pick up the movement, the sensation of the movement caused by the breath. So you may notice it first in the chest area or in the abdomen, or at the rim of the nostrils as the air moves in and out. Just see if you can just spend a few minutes just finding where it occurs most vividly for you. Where do you pick it up most easily? It'll usually be one of those three places. It's worth saying you may just have a more general sense of the breath through the whole column, from the nostrils right through to the abdomen, and that's fine too. Wherever it is for you to sense it most easily. And again, if you're visualizing your body and the breath, or imagining it, or thinking about it, just notice that and see if you can shift your attention to really sensing it, sensing the movement caused by the breath. Now, it's important to say that you're not being asked to concentrate on the breath. So this is just noticing in a very light and easy way. You're not being asked to eliminate all thoughts You're just being asked to notice the breath and keep coming back to the breath. So you may find yourself drifting off onto this or that. Thoughts may arise, and that's absolutely fine. You haven't made a mistake. But just notice when these things do arise and see if you can, without judgment, without prejudice, just move your attention back to the sensation of the breath. So we're learning to use the breath as an anchor. An anchor for our attention. And because the breath is neutral and has no agenda, we can notice the movement of our mind against the backdrop of the breath. So we can notice the thoughts that arise. We can just notice them and not get entangled with them, not to get into judgments about them. And then just gently return our attention to the breath. So keep the attention light. We're not concentrating, we're just noticing. Keep it kind. See if you can just locate yourself in a non-judgmental attitude. And use the breath as an anchor for your attention, a place to return to. So if your mind is busy, if it's moving onto this and that, that's okay. You haven't made a mistake. Just notice that. And then just gently return your attention to the sensation of the movement caused by the breath without judgment. So keeping it kind, keeping the attention light, and keeping a non-judgmental attitude. So if you're drifting off, just notice that. And see if you can just come back to an upright position and relocate your attention with the movement caused by the breath. So see if you can find a way of not getting into a fight with anything that arises, or not getting trapped or seduced by anything that arises. Just noticing it, and without judgment, with acceptance, just moving your attention back to that sensation of the breath. You may find it calming, relaxing. It's certainly neutral. So please feel free to stretch and move, adjust your posture, take a sip of water. And maybe just notice how you're feeling right now. How is your mind right now? We've just left what would be called a formal sit, but where is your mind right now? As both my colleagues that teach this class say and emphasize, is that meditation isn't something we just do on the cushion in a formal sit. this awareness that we practice, we can take out into our everyday life from moment to moment. Before we finish this evening, I will give you one little exercise that will assist that process. But just to give you a little break from sitting, I just wanted to talk a little bit about one or two things that we've done already this evening. We've done a body scan and we've done what would be classically called a bit of mindfulness of breathing. And both of those use awareness. They're both practices that help us to refine and develop our awareness and our capacity just to be present. Traditionally, the instruction that's offered or invited in meditation practice is to notice and let go. Notice and let go. Not to get entangled with anything that arises. And that's part of the process. And as I've said before this evening, actually to receive that invitation, to receive that instruction for meditation is quite easy. To deliver it is even easier. But actually to do it, we then start to notice the difficulty. How do we let go? How do we let go? So I want to just talk a little bit about this process of letting go. Very recently, I was on I did a long walk by way of a holiday. I walked the coast-to-coast path with my eldest brother from St. Bees Head in Cumbria across to Robin Hood's Bay in Yorkshire. And most of the way, the footpath, as some of you will know, was pioneered by Alfred Wainwright, the guy who mapped and sketched and wrote books about all of the routes in Cumbria. But towards the end of his walking life, he pioneered this route across the country from coast to coast. And most of it is signposted quite well. You have footpath signs, and on it it's written sea to sea, coast to coast. But there are some parts where those signposts don't exist. Certainly on some of the North York moors, it's just nothing more than a sheep track. And at various points, it's not clear where to go. And frequently you're having to sort of route find, navigate. Now, nowadays, a lot of the walkers have these sophisticated GPS devices, global satellite positioning systems that they hold in their hands, and they walk along, sort of reading them like this. So it tells them where to go. And of course, if you're an old school walker, mountaineer, that's effectively cheating. And the argument always is, well, if your device runs out of electricity, if you run out of juice, well, you're stuffed, aren't you? Unless you can read a map and use a compass. But very often, the maps don't correspond to the reality on the ground. Maps are drawn up by people many years ago that survey the ground, and they make notations on a piece of paper, and you have contours that denote the slopes and the gradients. You have little signs that denote the rocky outcrops, little footpath signs for different roads, for dry stone walls, settlements, woods. They're all marked on a map. But things on the ground change. Farmers cut down woods or trees. Dry stone walls are changed position when buildings erected where there were none before. So all sorts of things on the ground change, and sometimes the map does not correspond to the reality. Now, of course, we have in mind this expectation, well, it's reality that must be wrong. It's the map that should be right. We want to follow the route on the map. But when you're actually doing a walk like that, you have to go with what is arising before you, moment to moment. The reality is your guide. The map may well be wrong. So you have to rely on a compass to direct you. And in meditation, sometimes we enter meditation with a set of expectations about how it's going to be. These are like maps. Sometimes the reality on the ground, the reality of our mind, doesn't correspond to the expectation. So to give you an example of that, a concrete example is you come to sit for your evening meditation and you've had a taxing, stressful, busy day. And you expect that the meditation will calm you down. That's why you're doing it. That's your motivation for doing it. Nothing wrong with that. It's a fine motivation for sitting in meditation. But when you sit, your mind is all over the place. It's monkey mind, it's busy mind, it's perhaps crazy monkey mind. As you settle, you begin to notice just how crazy it is. All the stresses and the strains and the busyness of the day is all just spinning around in your head. So the expectation may not correspond to the reality. Maps and reality. And the teaching here is the same as walking a footpath. Is the reality is what you work with, not the map. The map may be a guide and an aid, but if it doesn't correspond, the reality is always has precedence. So in terms of meditation practice, you work with what you have. And if you have a crazy monkey mind, that's what you work with. And this is where the non-judgmental attitude comes into play and is so important. So important. If you can witness your crazy monkey mind, your disturbed mind, your stressed mind, just in a non-judgmental way, what a relief. Instead of saying this isn't the way it should be, one says, this is the way it is. This is how it is right now. And that's okay. This is what I'm working with. And just allow the breath to actually anchor you. If it's anchoring you with a busy monkey mind, that's fine. You haven't made a mistake. There is no mind state that you cannot meditate with. So it's just noticing in a non-judgmental way. This is the aid that helps us let go. This is part of the process of letting go, is to meet our experience of how we are with a non-judgmental attitude. If we can find a way of stepping back from saying, it should be like this, I'm not doing this right, my mind isn't the way I want it to be, I wish it were otherwise, if only. If we can step back from saying, this meditation isn't as good as the one last week, it's not as good as the one that I'm expecting to have. If we can just step back from that and start to just be with and fully experience, it's like this right now. And it's okay. Right now, my crazy monkey mind, that's the way it is. And of course, not judging in this way, this is partly what frees us. This is partly what enables us to let go and to move back without entanglement to the breath. And just to place this in the context of the Buddha's teachings, this is the first noble truth at work. First noble truth, this is the truth of Dukkha. I Dukkha, the Pali word that roughly translates as unsatisfactoriness or suffering. Some people will translate it as dis-ease, not disease, but dis-ease. Just that general sense about aspects of our experience that we're not at ease with. And to actually notice, this is how it is. This is how it is. I always remember Ajahn Subhaddo used to say, it's like this. It's like this. You don't have to add to it. You don't have to judge it. You don't have to get into a fight with it. Just notice. It's like this. And of course, this is part of what enables us to let go. So you can start to see now where I'm going with this is that by meeting our experience in meditation and in everyday life with a sense of not judging it, just being with it, allowing it to be what it is, not getting into a fight with it. This is part of the route from suffering. This is the route towards liberation. So I may have been talking about footpaths and walks and things like that, but this journey that you're all now on with meditation, and some people would say meditation has no destination, but there are others that would say, yeah, and there's something important here about a path that leads us from suffering. So I think that's one of my take-home points for this evening would be just see if you can bring to your meditation practice this sense of not judging things, a non-judgmental attitude. So important in life when we deal with other people, when we listen to other people, and when we're in meditation and we're listening to ourselves. Yeah, that's where we learn it. So I want to do one more little practice this evening to offer you, and then perhaps we'll sit for a little bit, and then perhaps we'll have some more little time for questions. But one little practice I want to offer you. As I've already mentioned, both of my colleagues that teach this class and myself emphasize the importance of taking your meditation practice into everyday life, not regarding meditation as something we do that's separate to the way we live, just allowing this awareness to permeate how we are from moment to moment. So if you're going through a day and it's not going as you plan, your expectations are not being met by reality, here's one little thing you can do just in 1 minute to help you just reconnect with the practices that you've been doing on the cushion in your room. That's where you spend 20 minutes or half an hour or an hour or whatever sitting in formal meditation. It's one little practice. So you're in some sort of situation, I don't know what it is, waiting in a queue somewhere for a bus or a supermarket, or even stopped at traffic lights. Just for a moment, just take 2 rather deeper in and out breaths. So in, out 1, in, out 2. In, out 1, in, out 2. Then just leave your breath alone. Just notice how your body is. Just notice, just notice, just notice. And then the minute is up. And how is your mind right now? So that's all it is. It's just a 1 minute practice. 2 slightly deeper breaths, and then just notice. Don't have to sit in formal meditation. Now, there are many variations to this 1 minute practice. That's just one way of doing it. Next time I teach this class, I'll offer you another way and see if that works for you. But that's all it is. Just 2 slightly deeper breaths, and then spend rest of the minute. The 2 deeper breaths may take you 20 seconds, something like that. And spend the next 40 seconds just breathing normally. Just notice. How are you? How are you feeling? How's your body? And that's all you do. And it's almost like a circuit breaker. Whatever you were caught up in, whatever stressful situation, or it may not be stressful, or whatever you were actually caught into, it just breaks that circuit. That's all you need. So let's just, for the next few minutes, let's just sit again and work with the breath. I'm going to give you a little bit of guidance on this, and then I'm going to stay silent. So sit again in your upright position. Just get a sense of your feet touching the ground, the points of contact with the floor. Just get a sense of your back. And then exactly as we did before, just bring your attention to the sensation of the movement of the breath. And this time, see if you can pick up the turning points between the in-breath and the out-breath, and the out-breath and the in-breath. So just that different sensation. It's either comes as a pause, or I would really rather describe it as a turning point, where nothing much seems to be going on before the next phase of the breath starts. So just to remind you, we're working with the breath and we're noticing sensation of the turning points between the in-breath and the out-breath, and the out-breath and the in-breath. So just let that go. Feel free to stretch and move. So we have a little time left. If people would like to ask questions, you're welcome to put them in the chat, or Wangdu will allow you to unmute and you can ask them directly, whichever feels more comfortable for you. And if you don't feel like, if no one feels like asking questions, I've got some questions that have been recently asked to me that I'm sure you'll find interesting. Just to give you some space. Okay, well, whilst you're thinking of your question, I'll tell you the question that recently came to me at an event where we were doing some meditation. And one of the things that's said about meditation practice, that it helps us to learn to respond to events in life and to what arises within us, rather than react. And someone said to me, well, what's the difference between reaction and response? Well, it's a great question. So I'll answer this one first, and then there's another one in the chat. Okay, so generally, when we're going through life, and indeed in meditation, you can notice that things arise and we just immediately, instinctively, we don't want them, or we do want them. So to use a sort of neutral example, we have an itch on our nose in the middle of meditation and we don't want it. And the instinctive thing is, a natural human thing is to scratch it, get rid of it, eliminate the discomfort. That's a reaction. Now, a response would be to notice it, to actually allow it to be there for a while and know that it's not going to kill you. It's discomfort, it's dukkha, it's suffering, and to really understand it in that context. And then perhaps even watch it change. And if it really is too much and it doesn't go away, and then to get rid of it. That's a response. So it may be the same action, but from a different place within you. And meditation is one of the things that helps us to work from that different place. So that's just one simple example. It's all the time, it's about intention. Now, it's very understandable that we may want to immediately eliminate discomfort. It's very human, very natural. And we can also understand that we can learn to respond to discomfort rather than just blindly run from it. So it's where you're coming from inside you that's the difference. One could say a lot more about that, and perhaps I will on another occasion. There's a question here in the chat. Is it acceptable to meditate lying down if there are discomfort sitting? Good question, really good question. Some teachers would have a different answer, but my answer would be, if sitting is really too much for you, then work with your body the way it is and lie down. Absolutely, I would say, without hesitation. If it's just minor discomfort, just sort of I don't want to put up with this, it's a bit much, that's one thing. But if it's real, my body is just not equipped to do this sitting practice, and I need to meditate lying down, that's absolutely fine. One of the Buddha's positions for meditating was lying down. You'll see in statues and images of the Buddha Rupa, you'll see various different positions. But the most common one is sitting, but there are ones that are standing, and there are ones that are lying down. So it has a tradition behind it. So that would be my answer. And all the time, my emphasis in teaching meditation would be kind to yourself. Learn the difference between being indulgent, discern what that difference is between being indulgent to yourself, but learn kindness. If meditation isn't teaching you how to be kind to yourself, then there's something not quite working. Meditation is, to my mind, it's all about cultivating an inner kindness and starting with yourself. And if you need to meditate lying down, then that's the way to go. So I hope that was reasonably clear. Sometimes there are questions where there are so many sides to it that it's difficult to give a clear-cut answer, but I think that one I'm pretty clear on that. So again, it goes back to this this point I was making earlier in the session today, is you have to work with how you find yourself, your body and your mind. You have to work with what is, with the reality as it is, not with the map or the expectation or how you would like it to be. Work with what is. So, are there any more questions? So, we've covered quite a lot of ground this evening. We've done a body scan, we've done some mindfulness of breathing, and we've done a little bit more work with working with the breath in meditation. And we've done a short circuit breaker, a 1 minute circuit breaker. So we've covered quite a lot of ground this evening. I hope you've enjoyed it. And I think the Sangha that we are here really appreciates being with each other. So, and the Buddhist Society thanks you for attending. I'm going to finish this evening with the closing homage. Some of you will be familiar with this. So the closing homage. The Lord, the perfectly enlightened and blessed one, I render homage to the Buddha, the Blessed One. The teaching so completely explained by him, I bow to the Dharma. The Blessed One's disciples who have practiced well, I bow to the Sangha. So you are the Blessed One's disciples who have practiced well. So thank you all very much for attending. Go well. Yes, it'll be Ajahn Subhaddo next week. And then Colin the week after that. So I wish you all a good week.